Well, it's not every day that we get to look at a Linux distribution as good as this one. This is Deepin OS 20 Beta, and we're going to be taking a look at it right now on Linux Lounge. Indeed, this is the Deepin OS 20 Beta. Now, I will say straight off, it's not every day that we look at a Linux distribution as good as this one, and I will say this is probably one of the most polished Linux distributions I've ever looked at by far, like easily so. And in fact, another unusual thing for this channel is that we're starting in the installer, because the installer is really, really nice, and it's like probably the most simple installer I've ever used. So that's absolutely fantastic. I have no doubt that this is probably one of the simplest Linux installers I've ever used, and you could probably hand this to anyone and they'd be able to use it. So what's quite unusual for a Linux distribution is Deepin actually has a end user license agreement, unfortunately, which is quite rare for open source software, but you know, I guess ups and downs. Well, no, literally all you have to do is select your language, and of course we're in a virtual machine, so it's going to tell us that might not be ideal. And then literally all you have to do is select your hard drive, easy as anything, and it will give you a layout of what it's going to do, which actually that's quite an unusual partition layout for a Linux distribution, but fair enough. And you can either encrypt the disk or not encrypt the disk, and you've got advanced settings too if you want that, which is fantastic. We're not going to encrypt the disk, and then it'll tell you exactly what it's going to do. Cool. Click next and you get this fantastic looking little slideshow while everything installs, and it does take quite a while to install because it's a fairly heavy-ish Linux distribution, but that's alright. You get like these sort of this cool little PowerPoint while it installs, which is pretty cool. And as I say, it's a very nice looking installer as well as being like quite simple. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about the installer. I will be back once the full system has installed. And here we go, we have just installed the Deepin OS 20 Beta. Now, you might have noticed that the installer actually never asked us for a username, location or anything like that, which is actually a good thing, because what that means is essentially you can go ahead and install Deepin on pretty much anyone's computer, then just hand it to them, and then the next time they turn it on they'll have this nice and simple setup. Now if we go ahead and just get it set up, like so, let's put in a username, and just put in a password, and there we go, and that was very simple. Literally just selected our location, you know, put in our username, and now it's tuning the system. And I will be back once that's gone ahead and done its thing. And here we are on the Deepin OS desktop. Now before we start the review fully, I would like to apologise on how this video may or may not work, or look rather. I tried to install the Deepin or the VirtualBox rather guest editions, and nah, it just didn't work. Tried to log in and black screen, so we're just gonna kind of roll with what we've got, I guess. As you can see though, out of the box, this is a very, very nice Linux distribution, like nicer than previous versions of Deepin either. Even I actually think that this may well be perhaps one of the best looking out of the box Linux desktop experiences. So kind of to break it down, you could install this on someone's computer, and then they turn it on, go through the setup, and they're greeted by this desktop. That's amazing. So just, I mean, to kind of start off, your first impressions are this welcome screen here. You get this nice little Deepin video, Deepin 20, as you can see, which is, and there you go, revolutionary design. You get your fashion mode and your efficient mode, which essentially what that will do is it will give you a more Windows-esque layout, or a more kind of, I mean, it almost looks like Chrome OS now, I guess. If we keep on going, you have the normal mode or the efficient mode, or effect mode rather. Oh, that's kind of broke it. Oh, Yeah, it just takes a second, but of course that's because we're in a virtual machine. As you can see, the normal mode very stock and standard, but the effect mode looks really nice. And if we keep going, you can change your icon theme, and I think they have a new icon theme, blue, and I must say it's a very nice icon theme. So we go ahead and click done, and now we're kind of let loose in the desktop. And as you can see, like I said earlier, it's a very nice desktop by default. You've got all those little icons tucked away. You've got your app launcher. You've got, you know, all the usual things you would expect. It's a very polished desktop. You've got a nice set of wallpapers, which is always nice to see. Oh, I must remark that that looks very Mac OS. But no, it's a fantastic desktop out of the box. You've got your icons in the middle, which is a strange choice, but a very Chrome OS, as I said. You know, on your dock, you have a file manager, Chromium, which props to them for including Chromium. I know a lot of people don't like it, but this is a Linux distribution that's supposed to be easy to use. Chromium, I do think, is the easiest to use web browser, just my opinion. You get the App Store, you get your album viewer thing, music, a calendar, and you get your settings, which, interestingly, the control center is now no longer a little pop-out thing at the side. No, you have a full proper settings program, which is great. You know, you can add your cloud accounts, you can change the display, you know, you've got your default applications, personalization. Now this is where things start to get interesting. You can change your icon theme, cursor theme, font, and you've got more general settings, all of that right out of the box. You can set it to automatically change day to night, a bit like macOS, or you can just downright set it to the dark theme. You can change your accent color, which, cool. I think I like the blue one the best. You can, you know, of course, turn on or off window effects and adjust transparency. And I have to say, you know, it's very easy to configure the way it looks, like very, very easy. And I must say, like I say, it looks really nice out of the box. You know, you got your rounded windows, which, you know, looks absolutely amazing. I don't know, I do think that this is, you know, definitely a beautiful Linux distribution. You know, you can go in and update, you know, you've got your update settings, system information, all that sort of thing. You can even change the boot menu out of the box, which, that's very impressive. And that's pretty much it for the settings menu. Let's kind of go and have a look at what apps you get out of the box. So, starting from the top, you get your Chromium web browser, which, yeah, it's Chromium. I think it's actually the newest version of Chromium too, if not very close to it. You get a file manager. Fantastic. That's a very nice looking file manager. You got your App Store. Now this is interesting. A lot of people are kind of like quite concerned with the Deepin App Store because it was found to have, like, you know, telemetry or whatever in it. And unfortunately, I do think that is true. I don't know if it's still the case. However, it's a very, very good App Store. As you can see, it looks very macOS, but as I say, literally everything you could possibly want is in here. And once it loads, you can kind of see that. Just Firefox, ESR, TeamViewer, Opera, Chromium, which is installed by default. You've got Vivaldi, Brave, the Yandex browser even. Like I say, everything is here. You know, you've got your, let's say for example, you want to install Spotify. Right here. Say you want to install Lutris. Right here. It's a very, you know, kind of full set of software. Like, pretty much everything you could want is here. There's even some programs you can install through Wine, which is interesting. You know, you've got your WhatsApp. A very, very good App Store program. Especially for kind of like a new user or like a user who just kind of wants something that just works or doesn't quite know what they're doing. That's a fantastic App Store. Moving on, you've got yourself a music app, which I have actually added one of my own albums to kind of show you what that looks like. You kind of get like a, you know, you kind of get a list of things, you know, your albums. You can see your album playing at the bottom here. you get a list of artists. Now, I would have rathered it be the case you get a list of album artwork, but if you click on that, you can still see it. Now I'm going to shut up for a minute just in case I have to mute this to avoid copyright claims, but I'm going to show you what the album artwork looks like on the playing songs. As you can see, that is a very nice music player. You get kind of a view of, you get like quite a visual view of the playing song. You can, yeah, it's a good music player. It's quite simple. There's no like features like Last.fm scrobbling or whatever, but it is nice. And that's kind of like a reoccurring theme with the Deepin desktop. It's a very nice OS. You've got a video player, which is also really good looking. If we go into the videos, there's actually a video included by default. So if we go ahead and play it, you can see what that looks like. As you can see, looks really good. The window bars hide and everything. Fantastic. If we keep moving along, you've got a screen capture program, which does exactly as it says on the tin. You have an image viewer, which is just, of course, a standard image viewer. You've got an album program, which also looks really nice. I've just kind of like gone and thrown in all the wallpapers so you can see what that looks like. You've got a Deepin draw program, which, yeah, it's just kind of like paint. You've got a document viewer or a text editor. You get Thunderbird out of the box, which is an interesting choice given the fact they're also bundling Chromium, but you've got some Mozilla software. You've got a terminal, of course, you can sudo apt away, which of course this is based on Debian. You've got a voice notes program. You've got a manual, which is always a good inclusion, in case you're not quite sure as to what you're doing. You've got a scanner, cool. You've got a link to your computer. You've got a link to the trash. You've got your control center. You've got I assume that would be a kind of keyboard configuration program. Moving on, you get a system monitor, a boot maker, so you can just throw in a USB and have it make a Deepin USB stick, which is very handy if you want to pass on Deepin OS or if you want to make a USB recovery drive. You've got a device manager, which I believe would be a driver installation program. Go on, let's have a look. And it would seem the documents program has actually crashed, but this is beta software, so that's kind of to be expected. Just kind of force quit that. There we go. No, actually, I don't believe that is a driver program. That's just telling us what hardware we have. Fair enough. And if we keep moving along, you've got yourself a log viewer, a printer manager, a calendar, a calculator, a font viewer, archive manager, package installer. Of course, you can install deb files. This is a Debian-based distribution. And you have cheese to view your webcam. So, all in all, Deepin OS is a very nice kind of, well, it has everything that you could possibly want, but it's not bloated either, which is always nice. Of course, it looks like there's a lot of software included when it's all thrown in your face, but when we kind of view it like this and use the alternative Deepin view, you can see it's not a lot. It's not bloated. You've got like a really nice app store to install pretty much any program you could possibly want. So of course you can build off this. You've got a beautiful desktop. It's very easy to use, based on Debian. So of course, pretty much everything that's going to work on Debian is going to work on this. So all in all, it's a fantastic desktop. Like easily one of the most polished that's out there. Like this is probably more polished than Windows or Mac OS, to be realistic. And I would have no issue just throwing this on someone's computer and letting them work with it. And I'm quite interested to see what this is going to be like once it gets out of beta. And what else is very impressive is all of this is open source software. You could, install this on pretty much whatever you wanted. That is to say, you can install the desktop on whatever you wanted. So, very impressive. Now, I'm sure a lot of people aren't going to want to use it due to Deepin's track record or the fact that this is Chinese software, but I don't know, if you don't have an issue with it, I would certainly recommend giving this a look. Possibly not while it's in beta, but it does seem like a stable beta. But yeah, all in all, this is easily one of the nicest Linux distributions I've looked at, and highly recommended. Go give it a look. But I think that is just about it for today's video. I thank you all for watching. If you liked this video and want to support the channel, check out my LBRY link in the description, and check out my channel on LBRY. Unless you're watching on LBRY already, in which case you are amazing. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video.